U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has arrived in India for a two-day visit. This comes ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the White House later this month. Mr. Sullivan will be meeting his Indian counterpart Ajit Doval in New Delhi later today. He is also slated to hold talks with the Indian Prime Minister and External Affairs Minister. The two sides are expected to finalise details of the GE F414 engine deal, which entails both countries to manufacture domestic jet engines for the Indian military aircraft. The deal is likely to be announced or signed during Mr. Modi's state visit. Now, this represents an alternative for India as they depend on Russia for nearly half of its military supplies. The US has expressed its willingness to meet more of India's defense requirements and seek Mr. Modi's support in putting pressure on Russia for the war in Ukraine. Neha Punya joins us now live from New Delhi. Neha, it seems that there's quite a heavy agenda ahead. What's on Jake Sullivan's mind?
Well, this is the seventh high-profile visit from a senior member of the Biden administration this year, Jill, and the second in 2 weeks. Just last week, you had U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin visiting New Delhi, meeting with his Indian counterpart, and now Jake Sullivan is likely the last U.S. official who will travel to India ahead of Prime Minister Modi's departure next week. And the agenda, officials say, is the same: to prepare for the announcement of certain deals when Prime Minister Modi visits and holds talks with Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. We've seen how the US has, through this week, spoken about the importance it's according to Prime Minister Modi's first state visit to the US in 9 years of being Prime Minister. They've spoken of how this will be a historic visit and how the partnership between India and US will be the most significant and most defining partnership of this century. Several things on Jake Sullivan's agenda. There is talk of India and US finalizing the setting up of a semiconductor chip-making facility in India, technology transfer at the heart of that as well. But of course, like you said, there is, from India's point of view, the most important thing that needs to be finalized, which is the deal to manufacture and assemble jet engines here in the country. A bulk of this centered at weaning India away from Russia, that has been a traditional defense partner for New Delhi, a country where a bulk of India's defense imports have come from for many, many decades. Many experts say this is India also, by continuing to engage with the US, prioritizing its domestic needs. And if this deal is announced, it will be the most significant defense deal between India and the US in several decades. Listen into what analysts are saying.
It does not dilute our stance with Russia. It only shows that India is exercising strategic autonomy to do what is best in its national interest. And I think that is the only guiding principle. We are not trying to play one country against the other, or we are not trying to balance one with another. At the present moment, we need this, and we go for that.
So India reiterating that it's walking a bit of a tightrope there. Now, it's an important deal for the US. How important is it for India?
Well, Prime Minister Modi has made no bones about the fact that in a few years, he wants India to become the world's largest defense manufacturing base, setting a target of defense exports touching and crossing the $5 billion mark. And India has been telling, several Western allies that it doesn't just want to purchase defense equipment and technology from them. It wants to partner with them to manufacture those jet engines, those aircraft, those arms here in the country. We've seen how in the last few years the government has prioritized incentives for defense startups as well. But in particular, when it comes to this F414 jet engine, it will be part of the advanced medium combat aircraft, which will put India in a rare league because it will then have access to stealth aircraft technology, something that only three other countries, US, Russia and China currently have access to. From the US's perspective, it's also about equipping India India, experts say, to militarily counter China. But that's equally important from New Delhi's perspective as well, given that that border standoff with China has now been going on for 3 years and there's no let-up of tensions along that frontier.
Neha, thank you. Neha Punia reporting live from New Delhi.